The next class of destroyer built by the U.S. was the 1,060-ton Wickes class. They were started even before the previous Caldwells were completed and were a virtual repeat of them. An astonishing 111 Wickes-class destroyers were completed between 1918 and 1921. Many would survive to World War II, and of those, some would serve in alternate roles. All surviving ships were quickly decommissioned at the end of the war. 30 were decommissioned or otherwise taken out of service between the wars. 23 were transferred to the Royal Navy under Lend-Lease in 1940. 4 ships, Gamble, Ramsey, Montgomery, and Breeze, were converted pre-war into high-speed destroyer mine layers, DM, and served throughout the war. This conversion was fairly simple. The 4 4-inch 50 caliber guns were replaced with 3 3-inch 50 caliber guns in a pattern similar to Manley. The torpedo tubes were replaced with 4 tracks to lay up to 80 mines, 20 each. All 4 were at Pearl Harbor when the Japanese attacked. None, however, was damaged. In the mine layer role, they had some notable success, mostly in the Solomons. On February 1, 1943, the Japanese destroyer Makagumo was sunk after wandering into a minefield laid in part by Montgomery. On May 7, 1943, Gamble and Breeze were 2 of the 4 ships that laid a minefield in Blackett Strait, which the next night would sink another Japanese destroyer and so badly damage 2 more that American aircraft would finish them off the next day. 9 ships, Dorsey, Lamberton, Boggs, Elliott, Palmer, Hogan, Howard, Stansbury, and Hamilton were converted pre-war into destroyer minesweepers, or DMS. Again, the conversion was fairly straightforward. The 4 4-inch 50 caliber guns were replaced with 3 3-inch 50 caliber guns in a pattern similar to Manley. The rear boiler and stack were removed, cutting their top speed to about 28 knots, and the torpedo tubes were removed, and the depth charge tracks were moved forward from the stern, allowing depth charges to be rolled off the side. At the stern was placed the minesweeping gear. Obviously, this was very hazardous work, not only because of the obvious mine threat, but also because these ships usually had to clear a beach before troops could go ashore. This made them easy targets for enemy aircraft. Palmer was sunk by a kamikaze January 6, 1945. Dorsey was damaged by a kamikaze March 27, 1945, off Okinawa. When Manley of the previous Caldwell class was converted into a fast transport, the Marines and Navy were thrilled at our success, and 5 Wickes were similarly converted pre-war. Calhoun, Gregory, Little, McKeon, and Stringham. With no more destroyer reserves, active destroyers Talbot, Waters, and Dent were taken out of service and converted in October 1942. In January 1943, more active destroyers were converted: Schley, Kilty, Ward, and Crosby. In July 1943, Tatnall was converted. In August of 1943, Dickerson was converted. In October 1943, Roper was converted. In December 1943, Herbert was converted. In May of 1944, Rathburn was converted. This was very hazardous duty, especially in the slugfest that was the Solomons and under skies full of kamikazes. Calhoun was sunk off Guadalcanal on August 30, 1942, after being hit by a dive bomber. Gregory and Little were sunk in a night battle with 3 Japanese destroyers on September 5, 1942, again near Guadalcanal. McKeon was sunk November 17, 1943, off Bougainville after being hit by an aircraft torpedo. Dickerson was hit by a kamikaze April 2, 1945, and was scuttled 2 days later. Probably the most famous of the class was Ward. She was patrolling the entrance to Pearl Harbor on the morning of December 7, 1941. At about 6 a.m., her new commanding officer, William Outerbridge, fired on and sank a Japanese mini-sub trying to sneak into the harbor. A quick report was promptly ignored. 3 years to the day later, on December 7, 1944, After being converted to a transport destroyer in January 1943, Ward was supporting the invasion of the northern Philippines when a kamikaze hit her midship at the waterline, starting uncontrollable fires that doomed the ship. After evacuating the survivors, the accompanying destroyer O'Brien, under the command of now Lieutenant Commander Outerbridge, scuttled the Hulk.